How's it going, my festive bakers? I hope you're having a great time. Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I've got another great brioche recipe for you. So let's go to the kitchen and check it out. You just can't go wrong with brioche for Christmas. In the previous Christmas episode, I made cardamom spiced brioche buns, and I used only half my standard brioche recipe for that. This is what I use the other half for. A tear and share brioche monkey bread. Every little piece is dipped in rosemary flavored butter and assembled into a loaf, layered with cranberry sauce, served up alongside a baked disc of camembert cheese. And if camembert is a bit too strong for you, you can use brie instead. Or whatever you decide to use, these flavors and textures will work really well together. The sweetness of the brioche, the saltiness of the cheese, the cranberry and rosemary. And if this isn't your thing, go check out the brioche playlist. It is full of awesome recipe ideas. And of course, head over to the Breads of Christmas playlist, and you won't be short of choice for your Christmas bakes this year. But let's move on with the monkey bread. I decided to use a small cake tin for it. It's about 17.5 centimeters or 6.5 inches wide, and about 7 centimeters, which is about 2 3/4 inches high. It would also perfectly fit in a 900 gram or 2-pound loaf tin. This though does not stick to tins, but I don't trust them anyway. Better to be safe than sorry. So I'm lining mine with paper, both on the sides and on the bottom. Right, these are the ingredients that we need. A block of butter, some cranberry sauce, sliced garlic, which is optional, and some rosemary sprigs. Next up, one of the most important parts of this recipe, the camembert. They usually sell them in little wooden boxes like this. Normally the cheese inside is wrapped in plastic, but we cannot bake it like this. So here's what you want to do. Remove the cheese from the plastic wrapper, take a square of baking paper, scrunch it up, then place the cheese onto it, and then put the cheese back into its little box. This is ready for baking now. Pop this in the fridge for later. I've included my machine mixed brioche dough recipe in this video. To find the hand mixed version, head over to the brioche playlist. For the brioche dough, we'll need some strong white bread flour, eggs, some cold butter, yeast, salt, sugar, and a bit of water. And I cannot stress this enough. Temperature control is of utmost importance here. Your ingredients must be totally cold. I actually kept my flour in the freezer, so it's below 0 degrees. And as you can see, the eggs are about 4 degrees Celsius. I know we're just using a splash of water here, but that also needs to be completely cold. If your kitchen is really warm, and your fridge doesn't go that low, put your ingredients in the freezer, but just pull them out before they're frozen solid. Now adding cold and hard butter into a dough would be quite difficult. So to make it nice and soft and pliable, we're going to press it. Place the butter in between layers of parchment paper, then press it out using a rolling pin. The butter will be soft, but will still be cold. And once you've flattened your butter, take it off the paper and place it back into the fridge until you need it. I'll show you one more way how to control the temperature here. What I did was refrigerate my mixing bowl, and I kept the dough hook in the freezer all day long. And with all these measures in place, we are ready to make the fail-proof brioche dough. So in your mixing bowl, add the water, salt, yeast, sugar, eggs, and flour. Now unlike all my other recipes, we are adding all the ingredients straight from the get-go. Normally when making dough by hand, I would suggest adding all the ingredients except the flour, giving them a mix, only then adding the flour. But when using a mixer, it doesn't really matter that much. Now bring your bowl up and set the mixer to low speed, which is second on my mixer. We want to bring the dough together and work it for around 10 minutes. It's important to get some gluten going before we start adding the butter, because adding butter too early will hinder gluten formation. But around 10 minutes later, the dough should be nice and strong already. Switch the mixer off and give your dough a pull, it should be nice and strong. From now on we can start adding the butter, so switch the mixer back on and throw the butter in chunks. Now a quick side note on the amount of dough that we're making. This is my full brioche dough recipe, but in this video I will only end up using half of it. I'll use the other half for another project. The reason for making the full amount is that, as you can see, half of it would be near impossible to mix in a mixer properly. Even making the full dough requires some scraping down the sides and helping the mixer out once in a while. And once you have added all the butter, it's nearly disappeared, scrape down the sides of the bowl and keep mixing on low speed for another 5 minutes. And after 5 minutes, turn the speed up. I'm gonna go to medium, which is number 4 on my mixer, and I'll keep mixing the dough for another 7 minutes. So back to the amount of dough that we're making. I will only use half of it for this video. So if you want to, you can double the amount of all the other ingredients and simply make twice the amount of everything. Or you can do what I do, use half for this project and half for another. And you can find plenty more delicious uses for brioche dough in my brioche playlist. I highly suggest you check it out, because as I always say, brioche is the most versatile dough out there. So if you see the dough sticking to the sides of the bowl, scrape it up again and then keep mixing. And once the 7 minutes have passed, turn the speed down, back to low, which is number 2 on my mixer. And from here on, we only need to mix for another 3 minutes or so. And once that's over, the dough should not stick to the sides or the bottom of the bowl. And the total mixing time should not really exceed 25 minutes. And that is exactly why we need stone cold ingredients, because 25 minutes of mixing will really warm the dough up. And this looks good, it's nice and smooth and it's really strong. Now we can start the chilling down and the folding process. Get a bowl and place your dough ball in it. Shape it into a ball before you do so it's nice and neat. If it feels a bit sticky, you can wet your hands with water to make it easier to handle. And at this point you want to take the dough temperature. It should be around 25 to 26 degrees Celsius. And this one's just about right, thanks to the cold ingredients. Now let's cover this up and pop it in the fridge for 1 hour. After the first hour of chilling, we need to give it a fold. Folding will make the dough stronger, give it more structure. It will also help with degassing it, and it will help with the chilling down process. As the surface of the dough cools down, the inside still stays warm. But when we fold it, we will distribute that temperature evenly throughout the dough, so that all parts of the dough ferment at the same rate. So dust your dough with light dusting of flour, place it out on the table smooth side down, stretch it out, then fold the edge over the middle, going around in a circle until it reaches the point where you started. You can actually go past the point you started, just until the dough ball is nice and tight. But don't make it too tight, because you don't want to tear the surface. Now flip the dough smooth side up again, tighten it against the table so it's nice and round. Now we can place it back into the bowl, cover it up and pop it in the fridge for another hour of chilling down. And after the second hour of chilling, we can divide it. As I said, this video requires half the dough, so I will weigh the dough and divide it into 2. If you simply want to make double the amount of things, then keep the dough whole, and instead of dividing, you can simply give it another fold. But I will use half for this project and half for another. When dividing and weighing, also use a light dusting of flour, just to prevent any stickage. If your scales are not large enough, place a bowl or plate on them. This is quite a big piece of dough. And isn't that lucky, I cut it to the perfect weight. So after dividing, we need to shape them up. Shaping goes the same way as the folding earlier. Place your dough smooth side down, fold the edge over the middle, going around in a circle until you reach the point where you started. Then flip it smooth side up, tighten it against the table, you can pick it up, pinch the seam together, and that's your dough ball done. Now we can wrap them up with some cling film so they don't dry out in the fridge. Make sure to not wrap it too tight, because the dough will expand. If you wrap it up too tightly, it may burst. And if it bursts, the part that comes out will get dry in the fridge, and part of your dough will be ruined. But that's all we need to do to make brioche dough. After this, we need to refrigerate it, and you can use it for any project you like. You can keep it in the fridge for up to 24 hours, but 12 to 16 hours will be perfect. Right, on the next day, let's start by preparing the rosemary butter. Melt the butter in a pan or in the microwave, pour it into a bowl, and then add a few sprigs of rosemary. How many you add is totally up to you and up to your taste. You will leave the butter to cool down and infuse for around 30 minutes. But the longer you leave it to sit, the stronger the rosemary flavor will be. Give it a taste, see if it needs any longer. If it's all good, remove the rosemary from the butter. Now we can continue by prepping our dough. Remove it from the fridge, unwrap it, dust the dough and the table generously with flour, and then flatten it using your hands. There's no need for a rolling pin here. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's monkey bread, we're just monkeying around. How many pieces you want to divide this in is totally up to you. So if you want larger pieces, cut it less. If you want smaller pieces, cut it more. I made it quite chunky this time. And the scraper is a great tool for this. Right, once you've cut up your dough, grab the butter, and if you are using a cake tin with a removable bottom, take a plate as well, because this will leak a little bit. Now start by dropping the pieces of dough in the butter, soaking them just for a little bit, and then arranging them in the tin. There isn't much of a technique here, just drop them in there, just arrange them so they cover the whole bottom of the tin. Once you have finished one layer, take the cranberry sauce and dot it around. or leave it out if you're not a fan of it. A sweet onion chutney or onion marmalade would work quite well here. If you want to check out a couple more monkey bread recipes, you'll find them in the enriched dough playlist. I've made one with cinnamon sugar and another one with garlic butter. It is quite a versatile recipe. You could flavor it with whatever you like. Okay, let's clean down this mess. Again, if you are using a cake tin with a removable bottom, place the tin on a baking tray. It will leak. Okay, the butter was warm, so it warmed up the dough. The final proof will take around 2.5 to 3 hours only. During the final hour of fermentation, preheat the oven. 160 degrees Celsius, fan on. That is 320 degrees Fahrenheit for my American friends. Just look at how much that's puffed up. It's almost doubled in size. If yours doesn't look like this, leave it for longer. But I'll get this bad boy in the oven. The initial bake will take 30 minutes. This loaf takes 1 hour to fully bake. But baking bread like this one for a whole hour would result in a very dark and dry top crust. So once it has already browned nicely after around 30 minutes, pull it out of the oven and cover it with some foil. This will prevent it from getting any darker. Wrap it up and pop it back into the oven for another 30 minutes of baking. And if you are not sure if it's fully baked or not, probe it. If the internal temperature reads above 93 degrees or around 200 degrees Fahrenheit, it's ready. This loaf is a little bit fragile at this moment, so leave it to set for around 15 minutes before removing it from your tin. We can use the leaked out butter fat to brush the loaf and make it nice and shiny. At least something good came of all that leakage, right? Okay, let's get this out of the way. There's only one more thing left to do. It's to bake the camembert. We need to prep it just a little bit before baking. Score the surface with a knife. This will make the bread dipping experience a lot easier and less messy. The garlic pieces are optional, but I do love my garlic, so that's why I used quite a lot here. But the cheese is perfectly fine and delicious without it. But whatever you decide to do, pop this cheese in the oven for around 10 minutes at the same temperature as the brioche. Once it's nice and soft, it's ready. And finally, before serving it up, I decided to add even more cranberry sauce to the loaf, which was not my best design idea, I must admit, but taste-wise it works. Finish with some extra rosemary sprigs to make it fancy, or not, and then let the sharing, tearing and dipping commence. I won't blame you if you don't share this. It is so damn good I couldn't get enough. And I think next time I'll just give in and bake 2 discs of cheese instead. I mean, just look at that. That is some cheesy goodness right there. So just go and make yours right now. So what do you think this monkey bread? Have you ever tried something like this before? Let me know down in the comments. If you want to see more videos like this one, click over here. Subscribe to the channel, click right here. That's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.